Hello, my name's Olurotimi Osha. I've been discussing American presidents, and more recently, I've been discussing the United Nations international law and the actions ordered by President Donald Trump on January 3, 2026. That's January the 3rd, 2026. Basically, which was uh, the strikes, invasion of Venezuela by U.S. armed forces, and the kidnapping and of the president of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro, and his wife, and their rendition in the U.S. for where they're currently facing uh, criminal charges for drug trafficking and 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 whatnot. So, what I've been trying to do is talk about the rules based international order that was already established, and to see if any laws were violated. Well, without a doubt, international law was broken, and I've been trying to explain how international law was broken. Uh, right now, today, what I'm going to do is just provide a summary of what I was talking about earlier. So, Jus ad Bellum is what's written into the United Nations Charter, which pretty much defines what international law is today. I've done previous videos explaining that we don't have an international world government, right? There are different sovereign states who've joined together in the United Nations following the end of the Second World War. Before I go into just providing the summary, that's all I'm going to do now. And later I'm going to do a subsequent video in which I juxtapose the actions of President Trump and the US military versus the rules of Jus et Bellum to see if the boxes check. I'm going to provide a summary today, very quick in this video. But before I do that, I just wanted to talk about something I found strange, and this might reflect the level of knowledge of many Americans, right, concerning the United States with respect to other nations in the world, right? So when I first came to the United States to attend school, this is going on almost 30 years now. It's been a very long time. But a classmate of mine, somebody who was in my class in university, not in high school, um, always referred to me as African. And so each time I try to explain, that I'm actually from Nigeria, this person, she would go on to correct me and refer again to Africa, right? Refer to my country as Africa, refer to me being African. And I thought it was bizarre because, I'd never been called African, right? I'd always, I'd always said, well, I'm from Nigeria, right? And if I'm in Nigeria, I'd say I'm Yoruba or what state I'm from. But here I was in America, and I was saying, well, my nationality at that time, I'm an American citizen now. I always have to put that disclaimer in this age of ICE raiding people, right? So I'm an American citizen now, but then, I would explain, and again, even though I'm an American citizen, I'm still from Nigeria, right? So I would tell this person that, well, I'm from Nigeria, right? But again, she would say Africa. So one day I decided to ask her that, okay, that she should tell me what she knows of Africa because she's always correcting me and seemed to know more about where I come from than me, right? So I asked her, if she'd ever been to Africa, what she knew about Africa. So this person said the strangest thing to me. And this is what she said. This was somebody who was in the university, an American citizen, born and raised in America, who had been admitted to a university, right? She was in class with me. And this is what she said. She said, well, she knows Africa is the richest country in America, which was it was bizarre, right? Um, Africa is the richest country in America. This is what the person told me. And of course, that is a ridiculous statement to make, right? Because Africa is not a country and Africa is not in America, but it lets you see her concept that the paradox and the contradictions in a lot of things that go on in America. So she viewed America as the world, and it makes sense because right, the headquarters of the United Nations is in New York, right? The United Nations, because she's heard that where all countries in the world come to America, America must be the world because the headquarters of the United Nations, where most countries in the world are members of, it's right here in America, in New York, right? So that's one reason that she probably had that confused thinking. And the other thing is American sports, right? For a long time, America was only a few countries play baseball or American football, right? Maybe just American Canada. But America calls their games World Series, World Championships, yeah, games that only American clubs or participants engage in, and Americans label them as world, championships. And so, which I found bizarre, NBA and things like that. So hey, that was just a joke I wanted to share. But this really happened, right? It really happened, and it was terrible. This was almost 30 years ago that a student in a university, an American student in a university, believed that Africa was a country in America, and America was the world. So I'm going to just quickly give the core principles of Jus et Bellum, right? And before I give the core principles of Jus et Bellum, something I wanted to point out were two articles in the United Nations Charter, right? One of them is Article 2, Paragraph 4, which says that all members, right, all members shall refrain in their international relations from uh, from threats or use of force against the territorial integrity or political independence of any state, right? Or in any other manner that is inconsistent with the purposes of the United Nations, right? That's Article 2, uh, uh, Paragraph 4 of the United Nations Charter. So that's basically saying that threats of aggression or attacks on a member state, right, violate the laws of the United Nations. And then it goes on in Article 51. It says that uh, nothing in the Charter, right, shall be construed to shall impair the inherent right uh, of individual or collective self independence if any member state is attacked, right? If any member of the United Nations is attacked, right? So basically, Article 51 of the United Nations Charter is saying that if any member of the United Nations, right, any member state of the United Nations is attacked, then other members or that member state individually has an inherent right to fight back, for self defense, go to war, or uh, collectively, other members of the United Nations can join forces, right, to in defense of that member state that has been attacked, right? So and so if there's an unjust war, right, because the United Nations doesn't want unjust wars, and so that's why I'd done an earlier video, and I'm just going to summarize those core principles of Jus ad Bellum, right? Jus ad Bellum. And so the first one is just cause. Just cause is, again, Jus ad Bellum, quickly just remind us, Jus ad Bellum is justice in war. It is the right to go to war. It is also justification for going to wars, right? So it gives justification for war. And I'm going to list the core principles right now. I've done an earlier video in which I explained these, but I'm just going to provide a summary. So there's just cause, or justa causa. Justa causa, that's Latin. Just cause, it says, okay, a nation cannot go to war to seek narrowly defined, national interest, right? It can't go to war because you want to seize the territory of another nation. You can't go to war because you want to grab the oil of another nation or the resources of another nation. So that won't satisfy just cause, right? That's not a reason to go to war. It would not be a legitimate war. It would be a violation of the principles of international law and jus ad bellum, right? So also, so what are examples? So things you can't, reasons you can't go to war would be to annex another nation or to grab the territory of another nation or to grab the resources of another nation, right? Or to exterminate the people of another nation. You can't go to war because of that. That won't be just cause. So what are examples of valid uh, justifications to go to war? Self-defense, right? If a nation has been attacked by a nation, if their territorial integrity has been attacked, been violated, then they can go to war because of that. And I listed, and that was the reason of Article 2, right? Paragraph 4 of the UN Charter. That's what it's saying. And also Article 51. It allows the United Nations, members of the United Nations, to collectivize, to come together to repel, to expel an aggressor nation, right? Just like the United Nations did to expel Iraq from Kuwait with United Nations Security Council Resolution 678, right, in 1991. So, uh, uh, so yeah, then also, so there are various reasons again, right, why um, that will amount to just cause, right? Just cause. That's justa causa. For instance, if a nation is doing something that shocks the conscience, doing things that are illegal, right? For instance, um, you know, things that are terrible, and nations have a responsibility to act, such as things that shock the conscience of humanity. For instance, genocide, uh, uh, crimes against humanity, war crimes, right? Ethnic cleansing, right? So those are there. Or a nation has a responsibility to act to prevent those things. Ethnic cleansing, right? For instance, the sort that went on during the Holocaust, during the Second World War. So that would constitute just cause, right? So the other core principle is of jus ad bellum is a probability of success, right? The nation should have a probability that the aims of the just cause war, the just war, uh, are achievable, right? So that that nation can win, can achieve their aims, it can win the war, right? And it's not just going to cause unnecessary destruction and things like that. So probability for success is very important. The notion probability that the nation that is going to war to achieve a just cause, a just reason for war, just war, that they can achieve success in the war, that the aims are achievable. Then third is also the issue of proportionality, right? So you don't go to war if that the aim, that the good that the war will achieve will surpass the the evil, the devastation of going to war, the devastation that comes with war, right? So you don't want to achieve a Pyrrhic victory. And Pyrrhic victory is from the story of the king of Pyrrhus, who was king of Epirus, right? Who'd been fighting. He was a Greek king, one time king of Macedon as well, but he was king of Epirus, and he had been fighting wars against the Romans. The Romans would keep fighting you, even though they lost. But he fought them. He would, but his victories were so devastating, and he said, one more victory like this, and we will be destroyed, right? So that will be a Pyrrhic victory. So you don't want to go to war if it will cause the use of nuclear arms and the whole world's going to be destroyed. So that would not be proportional, right? You wouldn't have proportionality there. So that's why you notice that the USA and the USSR never went to war during the Cold War, because both of them had nuclear arms that were sufficient to trigger a nuclear holocaust, which would destroy the whole world, obliterate the human race, annihilate everything in the world. So that would, uh, that would not have proportionality. Also, there's got to be legitimate authority, right, or proper authority, right? So it's sovereign states that can declare war and go to war, or the leader of a sovereign state. So to make the war legitimate, right? So ExxonMobil cannot declare war, right? ExxonMobil cannot declare war on another nation, right? So those are the entities that go to war. So with a legitimate authority going to war, it helps distinguish between, for instance, acts of war versus murder, right? It distinguishes a soldier as a prisoner of war instead of him being a war criminal, because the rules of war have been followed, because they are, apart from, after juice, you've gotten your juice at Bellum. A distinct principle is called juice in bello, and that's the conduct of war. And I'll do a subsequent video to discuss that. But right now, I want to focus on juice at Bellum. Um, Legitimate authority. So I've mentioned use, justa causa, that's just cause. I've mentioned proportionality. I've mentioned legitimate authority. I've mentioned the probability of success, and the last one is uh, um, the last resort. So war should be used as a last resort after other alternatives have been fully exhausted, explored, and exhausted. For instance, diplomatic options like using sanctions or getting the nations to talk with each other, or for instance, if you're accusing the leader of a foreign state of crimes, you can, if they're signatories to the International Criminal Court, like Venezuela is, then you could take them to the International Criminal Court, where a trial can be conducted, or you could take the nation, you could take them to, since they're member states, you could take them to the International Court of Justice, which deals with sovereign states, and they can mediate between the two countries, that are disputing, like the United States and Venezuela. You can submit the dispute to the International Court of Justice. Economic sanctions can be imposed in many, many different ways. There could be bilateral uh, negotiations, or other nations can get involved. So there are many alternatives, and law should only be used as a last resort. So those are the five core principles. I'll rename it. I'll give a recap. That's just cause. That's justa causa. Probability. There's a probability for success. There's proportionality. There's it's a legitimate authority that's waging the war, sovereign, and the war is, it's the last resort. So those are the five core principles. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm just going to recap Article 2, Paragraph 4, which states that all members shall refrain in their international relations from the threat or use of force against the territorial integrity or political independence of any state, or in any other manner uh, that is inconsistent with the purposes of the United Nations, right? So that's very important. And I'm going to do a subsequent video to see if America adhered or violated that article, that principle. And also Article 51 of the United Nations Charter, it says that it allows, it, it, it recognizes the inherent rights of for individual or collective self-defense, and also in the event that a member state has been attacked, right? If any state member of the United Nations has been attacked, then that's then the member states, uh, can exercise their inherent right to self-defense or collective self-defense, because other member states of the United Nations can assist and can assist that nation in fighting back. For instance, as it happened during the Gulf War in 1991, when Saddam Hussein under Iraq had invaded Kuwait, and they had the resolution um, to expel Iraq um, from Kuwait. Now, we don't know. We're going to assess what America has done under President Donald Trump. Does it violate standards? And let's consider that. Well, the headquarters of the United Nations is here in America. It's in New York, and let's see if I'm going to do a subsequent video to assess if the United States did violate uh, the uh, the United Nations Charter in such a way as it might compel action, right, under Article 51, right, of the United Nations Charter. Well, I'm going to stop this video here, and I'll do a subsequent video clarifying. My name's Olurotimi Osha, and I will keep you posted. Thank you.